Welcome in, everybody, to the Saturday morning recap show presented by Average Joe's Sports Talk and sponsored by the Henry House in Guntersville. If you are looking for a place to go and take a vacation on the weekend, there's no better place than the city of Guntersville, and the Henry House in Guntersville is the place to look to. They have 5 different types of rooms that are kind of based on different cities and different places in the whole entire country, and they all represent those places, and you get to stay right there off the lake in Guntersville. So make sure to look for the Henry House in Guntersville if you're looking for a vacation spot, looking for something to go do on the weekends. And it's a fantastic spot. I've said it multiple times. Me and Bo got to go and visit that house and go and walk around it. It's a great place to go. It's a great place to take your spouse and go and hang out for the weekend, relax, and get to see some cool scenery. And city of Guntersville is the most underrated city in this whole entire state, especially when it comes to vacationing and having the lake and all the different things that they have up there. Caleb Brooks, Corey LaBounty, Bo Starkey here to bring you the Saturday morning recap show for week 2, third week of the season, but week 2 is what it's called on the AHSAA schedule. And region games got started, and we started to see which teams could be rising to the top to be able to host some playoff games here in about 2 months. So first off, guys, appreciate both of you joining me here this morning. Corey, tell us a little bit about your game last night and what you had going on down in Mobile.
Well, when you look at a 7A Region 1 matchup, it's a top 10 matchup, 8 versus 9. You have the Foley Lions, the defending 7A Region 1 champions, taking on and traveling to Sims, Alabama. Zach Golson and the MGM Vikings. Again, 1 year ago, the MGM Vikings were 0-4 to begin the season. They lost a heartbreaking 1-point game to Foley at Foley 1 year ago, and they call this the redemption tour. The MGM Vikings do, and they've started off 3-0, a big-time win over Foley last night in dominant fashion. They were able to capitalize off 4 turnovers by the Lions and score 21 points off of those turnovers. And the MGM Vikings, folks, you saw them go on the road 1 week ago, beat the number 2 ranked team in 5A in Charles Henderson, and it continues. I mean, MGM continues to be successful with the big-time win last night over Foley.
Bo, you had your scoreboard show last night that you were able to do up there, kind of talk about that and really how much smoother it's gotten over the last couple of weeks for you.
Well, for one, we can get scores in. You're doing a scoreboard show with no scores. That's kind of hard to come out of the gate with, but 10 times smoother. Now that the games are on schedule, we break it down by counties. We don't do specific regions. We go, it's stationed in DeKalb. So we'll do Marshall, Jackson, DeKalb, Etowah, Cherokee, Calhoun, in that area. And we'll just break it down. Now, when the playoff picture comes into play, we'll definitely start branching out and doing, what it takes to get in and things like that. But there's a lot of teams up there in the smaller classifications that are well represented, as you well know.
So we'll get started now looking at some of the scores from around the state. Looking at this first group, Andalusia takes care of business against Dale County 56-6. Not really a surprise there. Talk about these couple of games up in your area up there, Bo. Anniston 47-14 over Montford. Appalachian 34-14 over Cleveland. And then ARAB with a good win over Douglas last night, 21-14.
One that jumps off the page, there's 2 things jump off the page about those set of games right there. The first one is how well Douglas played against ARAB. ARAB, if you remember, went into a double OT loss last year to Ramsey to go represent 5A North. And for Douglas to make that big a jump, is ARAB took a step back or is Douglas take a step up is the question in that game. And Anniston, obviously, it's a bounce-back game. After the Andalusia game last week where they were shut out on the road and beat 30+0. During the coaches show this week with Rico Jackson, we talked about it. He said, hey, it was 7-7 at halftime. We were playing our guts out. Then we had a negative 12 or 13-yard punt that they recovered for a touchdown that sprung aboard that, what you've seen, the score spiraling out of control too. So, yeah, those 2 games right there really stick out to me. They needed that win versus a rival in Mumford.
Yeah, and then a good win for Asbury over Brindley Mountain, 18-12. And, talk about needing one. They needed that one to get their region play started. Here's two scores that, all three of us can kind of talk about here. Auburn High over Dothan, 28-27, double overtime. Good win for them. And then BB Comer just rolls over Woodland. And they got that number one ranking in 2A this past week. And it doesn't seem like that they let some of the rat poison really get to them, as they seem to have played really well. But Corey, kind of talk about Auburn getting that win over Dothan, and especially doing it without their starting quarterback who was injured in that game against Enterprise last week.
Yeah, when you look at being able, next man up, that's to me the sign of a great program, a program that has established itself when it prepares its players to understand that it is the next man up syndrome, where you can have a player, an elite player, go down and a position player go down and have someone step up to the plate and be ready. Auburn looking to bounce back, has bounced back. You look over the last few years, it's one of those programs in 7A. It's always elite, and they're always fighting right there for the semifinals or an opportunity to play Blue Mountain State Championship. So no surprise that Auburn finds a way to get it done.
But what's your thoughts on Auburn getting the win last night, especially knowing their situation at quarterback right now?
Well, I talked to Ty on his way home, Will Wagner's brother-in-law, and he told me the situation. They didn't throw it. They threw it, I think, less than 7 times maybe, and it would just line up, and we're going to run power all night. And for those kids to, dig deep and pull out some grit like that and be on the road, everybody's saying that, the season's over, quarterback's out, to dig deep and grit one out. Corey hit the nail on the head. It's a program. I mean, you're led by a great leader, and exactly what I agree with everything Corey said. Great leaders get that extra gear, that extra juice out of guys to win games like that on the road.
And then, kind of just both of you briefly talk about BB Comer and them getting to that number one ranking there in 2A and what it's been like to kind of watch this program come from where they were when Coach Adam Fawcett took over to being where they're at, competing for a state championship last year, and now having that number one ranking.
Well, I'll start if you don't mind, Corey, because I talked to Fawcett just 2 days ago for about 30 minutes. And I said, "How you doing, number one?" He said, "Shut up." He cut me off immediately. He said, "Pure rat poison." He said, I'm not buying into it. I don't want my guys buying into it. I said, "Coach, I think you've kind of earned this." He said, "We ain't earned nothing." He said, "But I tell you, I am happy that people recognize our program now, because if you rewind the clock just, a few years back," he said, "we were homecoming for everyone." And but in that area of the state, then I'll get out of this game. When one rises to power, the other one's down. And that being BB Comer and Sylacauga. They share a stadium, they share a city. It's just BB Comer's time right now. And Adam Fawcett is a great, great coach. And it's not surprising to me.
Well, when you have a number 2 ranking and then you go ahead and make that number 1 ranking, it's great for the fans. It's great for the community. It's well-deserved and well-earned, because I guarantee you would rather have rat poison than to go ahead and just be dead as a program and not even have a pulse. So I would rather go ahead and have an opportunity to partake of the rat poison. Just to mention now, sustaining it is the key. Sustaining it is what makes a difference.
Now it looks like we lost Corey. Corey there?
Yes. Sustaining it makes a difference for a lot of these programs. And when you have an opportunity to sustain it, that's what continues to build the confidence and ultimately trying to get to that blue map. What you and the success that you've had throughout the year, now that you are on the mountaintop, you've been climbing and climbing and climbing. Sometimes it's easier to get pushed down than it is to climb to the top.
No doubt about it. So, Corey, talk about this score here. Baker 66-28 over Davidson last night. They really put it on them.
What a tremendous offensive and a historic offensive performance by Steve Norman and his Baker Hornets. Of course, you're looking at Josh Flowers, who is calling the signals for the Baker Hornets. Josh Flowers verbally committed to Mississippi State. So anytime you have an SEC quarterback caliber calling the plays for your team, and then you turn around and you look at throwing to Bryce Kane, a tremendous Auburn verbal commit, only in his second year of football, scoring 66 points against a Davidson team that set a school record for the amount of points scored. You had SEC athletes all over the field because DJ Butler, the running back for the Davidson Warriors, he accumulated 5 touchdowns 1 week ago, 4 rushing, and he had 1 passing. And then he last night has over, I think, maybe 290 all-purpose yards. So he's a phenomenal player, but Baker was able to slow him down enough to score 66 points. Very impressive performance by Steve Norman.
Benjamin Russell just dominates Calera last night. Calera went up 7-0. Benjamin Russell beat them 57-0 after that. I mean, just absolutely dominated. Gabe Benton, the quarterback, got going 15 of 17, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns last night. That's kind of what we expected. I think they got a big wake-up call. Me and you talked about it last week, Bo. You take that loss to Coach Danny Horn and Central Clay, and you've been riding high. I think they got a wake-up call, and they answered that wake-up call with how they performed last night. This score right here surprised me. Bessemer City, 48-21 over McAdory last night. Did not see that one coming. Maybe Bessemer City's got a good group. They're a sleeping giant at Bessemer City. They've always got athletes. It's just getting them to do the right stuff and be together. And when they're together, they can make things happen. Bo, talk about this one. This was a very big surprise to me. Beulah 38, Sachs 24 last night.
I don't know what's going on at Sachs right now. The coaching change, as Alfonso, I believe the gentleman's name that's there now. I don't know. Jonathan Miller leaves, but perennially they have great athletes there. But sometimes it takes a few weeks to kick that thing in gear. But I'm gonna tell you, Kelly, I don't have to tell you. You call games in that region. You better get it in gear because that region right there is going to slip out of your hands if you take another loss. I mean, it's going to be virtually impossible to run the table and come out and win that region because it's just too tough. So I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. And I haven't laid my eyes on them yet. I didn't see them in 7-on-7. I didn't see them. I'll take it back. I seen them in 7-on-7 at Gadsden City, and they looked like they had guys that day. But I haven't seen them in pads. What I used to call T-shirt All-Americans that would show out at a 7-on-7 or something sometimes don't translate over into real football when you put on pads and somebody like Corey LaBounty's barreling down on you, something different,
No doubt about it. And I'll be seeing Sachs next week because they take on Dadeville, so I'll get to see them up close and personal and kind of get a better look at what's going on. And we'll talk about Dadeville and their game here in just a minute. But good one last night between them and Weaver. Corey, Blunt over Robertsdale, 28-7. Really just a good win for Blunt, and one that they went and took care of business the way they were supposed to over Robertsdale last night.
You're absolutely right. Congratulations to Coach Ray Nelson getting his first win as the head coach at Mattie T. Blunt High School. You're looking at a couple of tough weeks for the Leopards, but there's nothing like getting that first win in a program that you're not trying to rebuild, you're trying to rebrand. And that's what Ray Nelson in his first year is doing at Mattie T. Blunt. So congratulations for them going on the road and getting a big-time 6A Region 1 win.
Yeah, a couple other scores. Briarwood gets their first win of the season, 28-10 over Chilton County, and then Carroll getting a win over Rehoboth last night. And Carroll's one of those programs that you don't ever really know what you're getting year by year, but when they're good, Carroll's good. And so, a good win there for them over Rehoboth last night. So now we'll flip the page and look at some more scores here. Looking through the AHSAA and week 2, third week of the year, but week 2 on the schedule. And, Carver Montgomery, a dominant 27-0 win over Park Crossing last night. Bo, that win for Gadsden City week 1 just continues to look better and better over Carver Montgomery. Central Clay takes care of business against Tallahassee last night, 41-7. It seems like Coach Danny Horn really has his group rolling there at Central Clay this year, and I got to see them last week. They're very big up front. Both of you guys kind of talk about this game here. Central Phoenix City 48-7 over Enterprise. It's after we saw Enterprise beat Auburn last week. Phoenix City has just been absolutely dominant through their first 3 games. 48-24 over Hewitt-Trussville, 51-0 over Smith Station, and now 48-7 over Enterprise.
Corey, you want to lead off on that one, or you want me to?
Hey, you can go right ahead, Bo.
That one is a statement, and that was one of those wins where, without saying it, they're saying it. We're here. We're going to go for that blue map, and until somebody derails us, that's one that sends shockwaves across the state. When you beat a team that just beat Auburn like they did, and you didn't just beat them, I mean, you destroyed them, dismantled them. I mean, it's a super impressive win for Coach Nix and company, who's from right here in the city. I'm sitting in Rainbow City, Alabama.
Yeah, Coach Nix is hungry. He has one of those elite programs in the state of Alabama. There's only a handful of elite programs in Central of Phoenix City. You look year in and year out, the focus that they have to take care of business week by week. They don't care who their opponent is, but they know the importance of these regional matchups early and how it can come back and bite you later on if you are to fall on the road. But again, the week by week mentality that Coach Nix takes, the guys know, we mentioned it earlier about other elite programs in the state of Alabama. When you have one man go down, you have someone else step up to the plate. They didn't care that Auburn had come off a huge win or Enterprise. You're just looking at the stability that Coach Nix has continued to bring to a tremendous Central Phoenix City program.
Looking down through some of the other scores, Charles Henderson, your defending 5A runner-up, 39-6 over Greenville. They just keep rolling, and they seem to have it going on down there. Clay Chalkville really dominates Rush Probst and Pell City last night. I thought looking at the first 2 weeks, Bo, that hey, Pell City may go give them a game, and they seem to be playing hard for Coach Rush Probst. But I think Clay Chalkville kind of showed you there's a step up in competition between 5A and 6A, and Pell City got to see that last night, taking on the number one team in 6, or the number one team in the North in 6A.
Yeah, and talking to Rush, he knew he was going to be up against a tough opponent this week. But now, Clay, if there's anyone in this state that you see that could match athlete for athlete with Saraland, it's going to be Clay. And I don't think anybody's going to shy away from that, including Drew Gilmer. As Corey said, he'd rather have the rat poison and partake in it. But yeah, you're talking about Rush. Listen to this, Corey. He's played Leeds, Moody, and now Clay Chalkville out of the gate. I mean, 2 close losses, and then last night was just a blowout. But how much does this guy's got left in the tank coming out of the gate like that? So that's a tough one.
It really is. It just keeps you mentally prepared. But with this team, if they can find a way to stay in these games, I know there's no such thing for Coach Probst as a moral victory. But at the same time, when you take over a program that had only won 1 or 2 games the year prior to, and you want your culture to be established, you're going to take those lumps. And it's okay to take those lumps because, they're not losses, they're lessons. And they're lessons that are going to be learned by his program. And if you're going to get Coach Probst, you better go ahead and get him this year.
I agree.
You're going to find a way to build that program from the bottom up. And if you're going to beat him, trust me, he has that long memory to where he's not going to forget these losses that he's taking right now. It's going to be just fine. But like you said, when you do have that buzzsaw to begin your year, if you're able to take one of those games, you're ecstatic because 1 out of those 3, you're like, man, okay, we gave ourselves a fighting chance. And they've lost some heartbreakers. But Coach Probst, I think he'll be just fine with Pell City.
Bo, you do a coach's show with Collinsville, 39-6 over Section last night. It's no secret that Section's football program isn't, one of the better ones up in that area right now. But to go out and take care of business the way that they needed to last night, an impressive win there for Collinsville.
Ernie Willingham in 3 games this year. We looked it up last night. He's outscored his opponents 139-12, something like that. But next week's the tale of the tape. Pisgah's coming to town.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a top 3 ranked team, and a 2A will be coming to visit one of the most beautiful backdrops in all of high school football there in Collinsville, Alabama. So that'll be the tale of the tape for them.
Yeah, and Pisgah was up 50-0 at halftime last night against Sam.
I went to that game before I ended up at Sylvania, and Caleb, they kicked off and was still up 21-0 in 5 minutes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Bo, you can talk about this one a little bit with me. Dadeville 26, Weaver 20. you look at this Weaver program, they've taken a whole big turn from where they were last year. They were a team that was getting just really walked over by people. And me and Chris calling the game together last night, it was very noticeable. It's not a knock on last year's coaching staff, last year's team, and the kids that were part of it. This year's group just looks like they know what they're doing a lot more. Last year, I mean, we noticed watching the game, there was so much confusion, and guys looked like they didn't know. And, both y'all know as well as anybody, if you're thinking and you don't know what's going on, you're going to be playing slow. Well, this group's got it going on. This coaching staff, this new group that they have in there is really turned this program around. They competed very well. They were up 13-0 on Dayville at one point last night. Dayville ends up coming back, scoring with 2 minutes and 15 seconds to go to get the win over Weaver. But, Bo, I saw enough from Weaver to know that I think they have a chance to do something in this region, and they could get that 4 seed or that 3 seed in that region and get in the postseason this year, which would be a huge win for that community.
Well, you've mentioned it, Caleb. The last 2 weeks, you've noticed their scores, and you're like, "What is going on?" Because these are games they were losing by 40 last year, and they've been very competitive. They got a new branch of the school over there as well. They've been talks that they may be merging with Sachs in the next near future. But before they do any kind of merger, and I don't know if that's true, that's just been the talk of the town. And at the end of the day, you're right. They're a different mindset, got a new school. I'm super pleased with what I've seen from them so far, especially considering if you rewind the clock 1 year ago and you watched that game, Caleb, you walked out of there. I mean, you were probably ready to go at the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's 39-0 at halftime, Dave, last
See
year.
what I'm saying?
The clock in the second half, so it was a much different story
Different
this
world.
season.
That's
Corey,
right.
Daphne, 39-35 over Alma Bryant last night. Alma Bryant had a big win over Holtville last week, and then turn around, and they competed very well with Daphne, but got to step it up on the defensive side there. But a good performance for Daphne to get that 49-35 win. Daphne's one of those schools that's kind of just caught in between, floating between 6A and 7A right now every single time we do reclassification.
Yeah, you look at the big-time lead that Daphne was able to jump out on Alma Bryant. I think it might have been 41-7 at one point in time. And you look 41-7, go ahead and start your car up and get a trip to the house. But not the case. Bart Sessions and his Hurricanes, they did not quit. They went ahead and pounded and chopped away at that huge lead that and his Daphne Trojans were able to present. But ultimately, Daphne, it may not have been pretty. They were able to go ahead and find a way to come away with the big-time 7A Region 1 win. So congratulations to Kenny King and the Trojans.
So looking at some other scores, Decatur Heritage ends up getting the win over Valley Head last night, both 34-12. Demopolis dominates Selma, and Selma's not a bad team, but Demopolis kind of got beat a couple weeks ago, and we said that may wake them up a little bit. Well, it did, 40-0 last night. Bo, talk about this one. Etowah, they had a crazy week this week with everything that kind of went on with their program. We won't get into details about it, but pretty impressive to go out there and win in dominant fashion last night, 42-13, considering everything that group's had to deal with.
Yeah, and at last count, Caleb, yesterday I was at a little over 150 texts and about 75 phone calls about the situation, the Etowah coaching staff. So I was getting a little burned out about hearing about it, and I know the players were burned out about hearing about it. So Blake Bone is the interim coach now, who just come off a state championship, winning at Etowah. That's a stability hire. That's a guy that Atala loves. It's a guy that Atala believes in. And it's a guy that's going to help stabilize the situation. And that's exactly what he did last night. Went on the road and beat Coach Shep and those guys at Asheville. And unfortunately for Coach Shep, he's out of the gate. He hasn't won a game yet. He's up against it a little bit at Asheville. But, he'll turn it around. They lost 26 seniors, I believe, from last year's team. So anytime that happens, that's a tough go about it. But kudos to Jamison Sism and Etowah for going on the road and having a double-digit, win like they did last night.
Eufaula dominates Headland last night, 56-14. That's coming off of after Eufaula was, dominated early in the season by Enterprise, 63-14. So good to see them turn it back around. Corey, talk about this one. Excel 28, Cottage Hill 26 last night.
Yeah, Cottage Hill with a brand new head coach this year, and I think that's one of those. They have not won a game yet, but it's the growing pains for the Cottage Hill Warriors program that are going in. And I know once again we mentioned it moments ago. It's one thing to compete, no such thing as moral victories, but when you do literally leave it all on the field, there's no quit, and you see your team compete to the best of their ability, win or lose, you have to be happy with what is going on at Cottage Hill Christian Academy. But that was a great win for Excel, a very exciting high school football game in 3A.
Hey, Toodle Boys ain't too happy, I'm sure.
No, he's not too thrilled with that outcome so far. And you look at it, and you would have loved to again have just one win so far through the first 3 weeks, and not able to come away with that yet. But I think that again, the foundation is being laid with a new coach, a new coaching staff, all together, and they'll get it together.
I'll tell you another program that we have right here on the screen that's got it going on. I kind of glossed over them, but Dora High School has got it going on with Chavis Williams up there. I mean, they beat Aniana last week, wasn't that right, Bo?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So I mean, a good one over Aniana last week, and then 61-14 over Curry, and it seems like Chavis Williams really has it going on up there at Dora High School. So. Looking at some other scores now, Florence gets the win over Albertville. You know, Bo, Albertville competed well, especially considering all that they had to deal with this week, and a lot of stuff within that program that you never want to see any kind of football team have to deal with for them. So 28-6, they obviously would have liked to have gotten a win, but I think they competed pretty well with a good Florence team considering everything. But talk about this one, Bo, 52-0 Fife over North Sand Mountain. Look, a little bit different level of competition than playing against Geraldine, but it seems like Fife was a little upset with how things went and kind of turned it up last night.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Benfield this week, and I'm just going to tell you this: I would not want to have been in that practice this week. I can just go ahead and tell you that wasn't fun for anyone. I can promise you. And if you read between the lines on that game, it was 39-0 in the first. And I know Coach Benefield, when the games get like that, everybody comes out and everybody else plays. So he's not a guy that runs it up. He actually does not like that at all. So he sometimes their scores get up like that, but he'll have the third. There'll be 8th and 7th graders in there when that happens. But yeah, man, that bounce back game versus a pretty good North Sand Mountain team. The 1A region champion that Coos is in last year, Valley Head, opened up the season with them, and North Sand beat them 15-0, shut them out. So this is not a slouch of a North Sand team, but I don't expect nothing else out of a Paul Benefield team, to be honest with you.
Bo, Ollie Smith's just got it rolling right now at Gadsden City. He's gotten this program back to kind of where people expect it to be. It helps that they've moved out of that 7A region back down to 6A, but they go dominate Buckhorn last night, 49-14. That's after competing very well with Hewitt Trussell the week before and beating Carver Montgomery, a good Carver Montgomery team the week before that. It's good to see Gadsden City back winning football games and having some pride back in that community when it comes to football.
Yeah, man, it is. I mean, anytime you leave the NFC East, 7A Region 3, life gets a little bit easier. And kudos for Ollie Smith. And the thing about him is you want to talk about a guy who's stood the test of time, who's been there under other coaches, stayed humble, continued to grind. Another head coach comes in, stays under him, continues to grind, gets his shot, starts 0-9 to what you know now. And each year his winning totals has increased. And it's just a blessing to see him doing that in this community, man, and to see his background coming from Emma Sansom, Coach Buster Gross, and so he's a Gadsden guy, so it means a little bit more to him. Year in, year out, the naysayers always talk trash. Oh, they're nothing, they're this, they're that. Naysayers don't play football. They don't strap up, and they don't put the pads on. The guys that's out there in the 100-degree weather does, and they're getting out coached by a guy in 100-degree weather. And I tell you this, not putting the cart ahead of the horse, but boy, next week they got Fort Payne, and that one's going to be, definitely for the front runner of that region. So that's going to be the tale of the tape next week.
Well, we should be setting an over-under on that one at about, 75,
oh my
80
God,
points?
at least. Vanderdorn, which we'll talk about when we talk about his game, I think is leading the state in passing right now. And he come in the studio with us last night on the final drive. But we'll get to them in a minute. But huge matchup, and I'm telling you, that one will be one you will want to watch.
Geraldine 35-3 over Plainview. They just keep it going up there. I mean, Geraldine easily a team to watch out for in 3A this year, being able to make a run and setting up. Them and Sylvania are going to have some huge matchups on down the line. So I'm looking forward to those. And Corey, Gulf Shores over Faith Academy last night. Talk about that one. A big win for Gulf Shores to beat Faith Academy.
Yeah, Ronnie Royal, outstanding two-way player for Mark Hudspeth. If you haven't heard the name Ronnie Royal, you need to go ahead and make sure you do some type of huddle search or some type of football search on this young fella, because he has been a rock for Coach Hudspeth. He plays both ways of the football, offense, defense, special teams, basically doesn't come off the field. And I know that Ronnie Royal is one of those household names that has been verbally committed to North Carolina State, but again, for these two teams, it's a top 10 matchup, 5A Region 1. It's one of those buzzsaw regions to where the 4 seed coming out of this region when the playoffs start can beat anyone else's 1 and 2 seeds. And that's how powerful and potent this region is. Now, these two teams played twice 1 year ago, as Gulf Shores was able to defeat Faith Academy in the regular season, and then Faith Academy in the third round of the playoffs was able to avenge that loss and to end Gulf Shores' season. So for Gulf Shores to travel on the road and find a way against Jack French and the Faith Academy Ram squad, congratulations to the Dolphins. And I know this, you have one of the best two-way players in the state of Alabama and Ty Goodwill playing for the Faith Academy Rams, verbally committed to Louisiana Lafayette. And so far through the first 3 games of the season, he has 5 interceptions. So he's been a ball hawk. He's all should have 7, but 2 of those were called back. So with 5 interceptions, you're looking at a young man that's a tremendous athlete. Of course, athletes littered all across the Gulf Coast here in Mobile and Baldwin County, but a huge win for Gulf Shores trying to go ahead and become 5A Region 1 champion. Took a step in the right direction with the big win over Faith Academy on the road last night.
Bo, Hanley over Jacksonville 32-24, but to me, Jacksonville showed a lot last night. They got down early in the game. They fought back. They gave themselves an opportunity to win it, but Hanley just shows why they're one of the favorites in 4As. They pull away and end up winning that one by 8.
Yeah, very interesting game right there, because that's a tell of the tape to see where you're at, honestly. And I'm going to be honest with you. Jacksonville showed me something. They really showed me something in that game, because the computer actually had that game at 5, but a lot of people was like, man, Hanley's fixing to roll these guys, but that's not the case. Jim Ogles and company, Jim Ogles' son's phenomenal, and he's just he can make every throw on the field. So you have to cross every T and dot every I when you're playing a quarterback like that, and guard every blade of grass. I mean, or he can eat you up. But I mean, Coach Larry Strain does what Coach Larry Strain does. He squeezes you down, and it's just a different world when that guy is across and you're looking across the sideline at him.
Other scores there on the screen: Helena over Homewood last night, 31-17. So Richie Busby and his group stays undefeated so far on the season at Helena. Hewitt-Trussville dominates Oak Mountain last night, 42-7. So a good win for Hewitt-Trussville in that tough region there. And I want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by the Henry House. The Henry House is your premier destination for luxury vacation rentals in the heart of downtown Guntersville, Alabama. Our newly renovated historical home features 5 luxurious suites, each named after a different species of bird to give you that southern flair. The ruffed grouse, blue heron, ruddy duck, Alabama yellowhammer, and the eagle's nest are sure to provide a unique and comfortable stay. We invite you to come experience the Henry House to see the transformation. Make sure to check out the Henry House in Guntersville if you're looking for a place to go on vacation on the weekends and a place to hang out at. The Henry House is the perfect place for you to go and be at. So looking at some of the other scores here throughout the state, I'll get it set up right here. Hillcrest over Northridge, 48-3 last night. A good win there for Hillcrest up there in Tuscaloosa. Hopeful over Shelby County. Good win for them, bouncing back Hoover gets their first win of the year, 28-20 over Spain Park. And, both of you guys can talk about this. I was telling people this was a must win for Hoover. If they didn't get this win, you're looking at a Hoover that could have been staring 0-6 in the face, considering they play Hewitt coming. They got Vestavia coming up this week, then Hewitt, and then Mountain Brook. That's their next 3 games after the Spain Park win. So they needed this win last night, and good win for Hoover. And we'll see if that maybe starts to get them going a little bit this year.
Definitely must win, and a rivalry game at that. And Vakakis actually had Spain Park playing very well heading into this one.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the, people who pick games pick Spain Park, and rightfully so. But man, Hoover's Hoover. They've been ranked in the top 10 for, I think, I don't know how many weeks in a row. It's the state record. But I'm not shocked by the win. So yeah, it was a huge win for them.
Yeah, it really was. Can you imagine Hoover starting 0-3? That's something that does not even go together. I know that 2 losses have been really tough for Hoover, but kudos again. When you have a championship culture, you find a way to do things that naysayers say you can't do, and not that you need extra bulletin board material or extra fuel to your fire, but you pretty much knew that Hoover was going to find a way to get this W and to get things rolling the way that they want to. As mentioned earlier by Caleb, when you hit that other backside of that buzzsaw, you want to make sure that you're sharper and not dull with a donut in your win column.
Looking at some of the other scores on here, James Clemens dominates Bob Jones in a big rivalry game up there in Huntsville, 40-13. I had James Clemens in Mountain Brook last week. James Clemens didn't play very well in that game, but turned it around to beat Bob Jones pretty handily last night there in that game. Lynette gets a big win over Horseshoe Bend, leads with a win over Springville last night. So some good wins there for those teams. And then continuing on here, looking at some of the scores, going down the list, you got Laverne getting a dominant win over Barber County last night. Lochapoka seems to really have it going on. I know that they've kind of gotten some kids that have moved in from Auburn and Beauregard and Opelika, and a couple of those people kind of moving out into that area. And I think Lochapoka is really benefiting from that. And it shows 54-18 over Verbena last night. You talked about it earlier, Corey, and we'll go ahead and let you talk about this game a little bit more. Mary Montgomery, 28-7 over Foley. Surprised me last night considering the offensive weapons that Foley has. Not only Perry Thompson out there, but they've got a running back who's, about 260 pounds and is just a bowling ball back there.
Yeah, Colton Nero is that back that you're speaking of, was leading the state in rushing, wound up with 115 yards last night. And one of those runs out of that 115 that he had consisted of probably a long busted run to where he ran left, ran right, ran back left, created close to 48 yards for himself. But tremendous running back who through, again, 2 games has over 600 rushing yards and come in averaging 222 rushing yards per game. I thought that you were going to have to find a way when you have a run game and a passing game. MGM was going to have to find ways to get black hats to the ball. They were going to have to find a way to bite the football defensively. And their defense really rose up to the occasion, having 4 turnovers, and one of those led to a pick 6, and 2 others almost led to points off turnovers and house calls as well. But I really think that you look at Perry Uno Thompson being held to negative receiving yards. That is credit to Alex Page, the defensive coordinator for MGM, putting in a game plan and getting his guys to believe in this system that MGM is for real and it's not a fluke. Anytime you can hold the state's leading rusher to 115, 100 below his average, this Foley offense came in averaging over 300 yards per game and didn't have over 160. So you look at the final score, Jared Holland, he is the quarterback for the MGM Vikings, had 3 total touchdowns. He's a verbal commit to South Alabama. That's a name that you'll continue to hear a lot about moving forward as this high school season evolves. But MGM, they're for real.
Mobile Christian over WS Neal last night, 38-6. A good win for Mobile Christian right there. And Corey, they just they lose one of the better players in this whole entire state and just continue to have it going there with Coach Ronnie Cottrell.
Ronnie Cottrell, what more can you say? He's not going to duck and dodge any competition. And regardless of who's on his roster or who's not on his roster, this team plays well together. They had great team chemistry prior to losing All-American type candidate in Sterling Dixon Jr. But Mobile Christian is ranked in the top 10 to begin the preseason polls for a reason. They've kind of pecked away and are working their way to the top. Again, you remember this is a team 1 year ago that had several of their wins taken away from them and almost were eliminated from the playoffs 1 year ago. So Coach Cottrell and this team, they want to keep that bitter taste out of their mouth. They've been working tremendously hard. It's a great win for the Mobile Christian Leopards organization.
And then, Bo, we talked about this game a little bit during Road to the Blue Map last week. Montevallo ends up getting the win over Hill County, 33-21 last night. But it seems like a really good football game between those two. And we saw last year that's a very important game in that region for those two teams. I hate that Coach Ryan Locke and his group wasn't able to come out on top, but a good win there for Montevallo and Coach Blake Boren as well there. So looking at some of the other scores, I mean, Montgomery Catholic just keeps rolling, Bo. I thought that Booker T would maybe give them a little bit of a test considering what they had done to Tallahassee the week before, but 56-6 last night. Juice and his group they got it going on there at Montgomery Catholic right now.
Year in, year out. Juice, I actually texted him good luck yesterday on my way up to Fort Payne, and he said, I appreciate you, brother. Love you. I don't know what else you can say about them. They're wanting someone to step up and challenge them. A lot of people thought the same as you did, Caleb, that after Booker T had performed so well in the first couple of weeks that was going to be a really close game. But Juice said, no, it's not today, my friend. Not today. And Caleb, I mean, he's obviously one of the best players in the state, one of the best quarterbacks in the state. And he, anytime you got a quarterback like him, you can just, it's like watching the PlayStation, man. I mean,
yeah,
you can have him, pinned down. You can have guys on him. It does not matter. He's left-handed. He can run. He can throw. He makes good decisions. I mean, he started as an 8th grader against 5 in a state championship game. I mean, and actually dominated that football game for the most half. So I knew then, I said, this kid's special, So, but yeah, not surprised that they won like they did, honestly.
But Moody over Alexandria, 42-7. But I don't know that there's a team in the state that has a tougher schedule to start the year than Alexandria does.
Pell City.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, no. But I've never in my entire life, and I'm old. I mean, I'm old. I've never in my entire life seen Alexandria 0-3, and I have never seen them giving up 40. I think it's 43 points a game now. And being defeated by double digits. And he's had some guys quit, on the team, and some guys just don't want to work hard and buy in. And Todd Ginn's a proven winner. His family is a winner. His dad, Larry Ginn's, a legend in this state with multiple state championships in multiple sports. And he has his brothers as his staff. So what they're doing is the right thing. Does everybody want to buy in nowadays with the generation we live in? I don't know. That may be the problem. But if it is the problem, the ones who do stay will win. And he's Corey's talking about very highly, and he should, about Ronnie Royal. He was part of this program at one point. Mm-hmm. So that's the type of players that have came through there over the years. So they'll be back. I don't know what's going on here. I haven't talked to Todd in a few weeks, but knowing him, the ones that's going to stay, they may go through some growing pains, but he'll get it turned around.
Some of the other scores real quickly. Mortimer Jordan dominates Gardendale. Very surprised by that. Mortimer Jordan seems to really have a good group this year. They seem to have it going on. 58-21 over Gardendale. You just don't see Gardendale, not here recently. They haven't been beaten like that. Mountain Brook beats Minor 28-0. And, look, it's 28-0. It's a dominant win, but you can kind of look at Mountain Brook through these first 3 weeks and tell it's just not. They lost a ton off that group from last year, and it just is not the same team as it. Well, they're still a good team, but last year's team was something special, and that's why they were able to sit there and play for a state championship. Ohatchee over Westbrook Christian, 34-33 last night, and then Aniana over Hanceville, 43-24. Oxford over Shades Valley, 42-13. Talk about those games real quick, Bo.
One of them that really jumps out at me is Westbrook Christian. Steve Smith took over, left Piedmont. They were down 26-6 in that game and come storming back and took the lead. To ultimately fall 34-33, I believe, is the final in that game. That game really stuck out to me. And what else can you say about Sam Adams? He's left for dead, and
Yeah.
People's complained about. If he don't win this year, he's on the hot seat. Hot seat for what? I mean, he graduated 26 seniors or 25 seniors when Keith left. 13 guys transferred out on top of those 26 seniors. And what does he do? He goes and wins the region. All right, so now they move him down to Birmingham into that monstrous 6A region down there. And he's doing nothing but being undefeated right now. He gets a victory over McAdory for the first time in school history this year. He's got Mason Mims there, who's one of the state's best quarterbacks. I was there during the summer, and Miami was there watching him throw during that time. And I'm just telling you, he's got it going on. I mean, it's just bottom line. We do coach a show with him every Tuesday, and great guy too. So I'm super proud of him in Oxford.
Pike Road over Wetumpka 41-18 last night. Wetumpka now 0-3 this year. Not used to seeing that from them, and that's after they. A lot of people expected this a year ago when Bear Woods was taken over, that this is how things would go, and he surprised everybody by winning some games early. Now they kind of had some expectations coming into the year, and they've challenged themselves now. They've had a good schedule here to start the season, but 0-3, just a rough start. And then we kind of mentioned this game earlier, Bo. Pisgah over last night, 50-7, and just a dominant win for them. And they just continue to keep it rolling there with Coach Luke Pruitt. So Pleasant Grove, 35-21 over Winona. But, look, this is a game where last year Pleasant Grove won, I think it was like 56-6 or something like that. So Winona is a lot better this year, and it's good to see Winona kind of back to being where we've seen them as a program before, and it showed by how they competed last night. Prattville, I know Stacy Mills, Corey, very happy about seeing this result. 43-9 over Smith Station last night. They needed that after the start to the season that they've had. Bo Ragland over Donahoe last night, 66-0, just dominant. Ramsey over Jasper, 55-6. Ramsey just continues to roll. They got it going on there. Reeltown over Lafayette last night, 41-6. I think Coach Matt Johnson has himself a special group at Reeltown this year. They've been dominant so far. And then Corey, Saraland over St. Paul's, 47-3 last night. Just talk about the Saraland team and just how impressive it is to see what they've been able to put together.
They are the biggest buzzsaw in the state of Alabama. Just not enough footballs offensively for all the firepower that they have. And where it's underrated is defensively, holding the Saints to only 22 total yards of offense. 22 total yards of offense to go along with those 47 points. KJ Lacey, Texas, verbal commit. He throws for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you know about Ryan Hollywood Williams having to be involved there. And I think that as a whole, when you look at the combination, Ryan Williams having 3 passes received for 89 and touchdowns, his numbers continue to be solid. Now, could Ryan Williams have 175 to 200 yards receiving every single game if that's what Saraland needs? Absolutely. But it's pick your poison with Jeff Kelly, and I don't mean rat poison. I mean the type of poison that he's going to give to you. He may throw you a little rat poison. He may decide to go ahead and throw you some type of other poison. But the poisonous darts that he has to go ahead and be at his disposal as the offensive play caller for the Spartans are second to none in the state of Alabama.
Look, we don't pick games here on Average Joe's and stuff, but I think to me, when you look at 6A and 7A right now, I mean, would y'all be in agreement? It's no secret. It's setting up for Saraland and Clay Chalkville to play and Thompson and Phoenix City to play right now, and it's up to all these other teams to try to knock one of those two off to be in that position.
I agree.
You can't disagree. You can't argue that as far as what we've seen through the first 3 weeks of high school football. And, when you kick toe to leather every single week, especially in the playoffs, anything can happen. We've seen weirder things happen, but I think that that's the difference between your pretenders and your contenders, because what you do is, once you are at the top of that mountain that everyone's coming for you week in and week out, and you can't take any days or any time off. And Saraland, they're not going on vacation anytime soon. Winning the first ever state championship in the school's program's history, and knows what it feels like to be at the top, knows what they're striving for. An undefeated season this year. Only had one loss. And remember, they weren't region champions a year ago because of that one loss. They want perfection, and week in and week out, they're striving for that.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds you of Georgia last year, and kind of what their attitude was, where, they were saying, hey, we know we won it the year before, but we want to go 15-0. And that I think that's kind of what Saraland's at, where, hey, we know we won it last year, but now we want to win it by being perfect and going 15-0. And they remind me a lot of that. But I'll tell you, the way Clay Chalkles looked so far, I mean, it's setting up those two games could be a lot of fun when we get going in the Super 7. Bo, talk about this one. Scottsboro 63-38 over Boaz. Can anybody stop this offense up there?
Dude, Corey, listen to this. They're running the triple option flex ball, and they're averaging about 57 points a game. And last night they put up 600 yards of total offense and another 40-something point first half. And they didn't have their second leading rusher. And when you're running the triple option, your fullback's out. That's usually a problem. But no, Coach Bell, what he's doing there, it's unbelievable. They were left, another team that was left for dead. Fort Payne was going to smack them around in the Top Cat Trophy game, and that didn't happen. They was beating them 49-20 at halftime. And then this week they put up 3? Caleb?
Yeah, 63-38.
63 points and 600 yards of offense. So, yeah. And again, we talked to Justin Thrasher and Heath Loki. They call, regulars on the it's a sister station to, the station we're on, 98.3 out of Fort Payne. But unbelievable performance again by Coach Bell in Scottsboro.
The only thing that worries me with them is defense. It's the only thing that kind of worries
me. They do give up
them.
Truckloads of points so far.
They're starting to slowly. 38 this week. So
they're starting to slowly. If you look at those scores, they're starting to come down a little bit, and they're starting to get a little bit better. But man, if you can average 50,
you can give up. You can afford to give up a couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at some other scores, Southside Gadsden 29-8 over Lincoln last night, a good win for that group, and they bounced back after 14-10 loss to Guntersville to start the year. It's been good to see Miles Holcomb and his group bounce back with 2 straight wins and kind of getting things going. Corey, talk about this game. Spanish Fort 14, Baldwin County 13. Is Spanish Fort as good as they've been in the past, or is Baldwin County a lot better than they've been in the past?
I think what you start doing is you start trying to look ahead. And when you start looking ahead and overlook an opponent the way you're supposed to properly prepare, kudos to Baldwin County for giving Spanish Fort all they could handle. When I saw that come across the ticker in regards, I thought that was a misprint last night. But at the end of the day, Chase Smith and the Toros find a way to get a much-needed 6A Region 1 win. You don't want to drop those that you're supposed to win, but I think that you start looking at Spanish Fort. Sometimes you have to have those eye openers, and this is that game.
St. James dominates Prattville Christian 63-35. That's coming off of Hanley, really handling them last week, 55-27. So a good bounce back win there for St. James. You're defending 3A state champs. Stanhope Elmore with a good region win over Russell County, 24-21. And then, continuing on down the list, a good win for Susan Moore, Bo, 33-0 over Danville last night. And then talk about this one, Bo. Sylvania 23, Piedmont 7. Not the start that Jonathan Miller has wanted there at Piedmont, but they've also faced some pretty good competition here in his first 2 games to get started as well.
Yeah, you think? They fight Cherokee County and Sylvania, and then they play Fife in the Jamboree. So, they've stacked the deck, but I don't know the last time Piedmont's been 0-2, and I know that's not the start Jonathan Miller wanted, but I'm not real surprised by that win because what Tyler Van returned at Sylvania is truly remarkable. And I actually attended that game last night for a quarter and a half, and I'm telling you right now, Sylvania has a new Jumbotron. It's huge. It's the size of Andalusia's or bigger. Also, their field is deep. You just have to see it, Caleb. I have to take you there. It's immaculate. It's one of the best looking fields I have seen of natural grass. It looks like the 17th green or at Augusta or something. It's unreal. And we had Coach Fan on the phone last night, and he just talked about they were actually winning that game 23-0. That touchdown came very late from Piedmont.
Wow.
And you're talking about a Piedmont team that has Ishmael Bethel, Raleigh Pinto, and Cole, that's a new quarterback, but a very good quarterback. And to basically shut them out into a late kind of mop-up touchdown was a huge win for Sylvania. And looking down the road when they play Geraldine, there'll be 10,000 people at that game, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, there will be. I mean, that scene's going to be insane when
Yeah,
those two
it's going to be
teams
unbelievable.
play each other here in a couple of weeks. So, looking at some more scores, Corey, talk about this one. Theodore 39, Murphy 8 last night.
Yeah, Steve Mass getting it done in dominating fashion. You know, Murphy having a first-year head coach, Coach Justin Hanna, he's going to have his hands full throughout the year. But when you're talking about having to start off playing the type of opponents that he's playing 1 week ago, Saraland, this is Theodore, doesn't get any easier for him and his program. But congratulations to Steve Mask and the Bobcats.
Good win for them. Thomasville over Monroe County, 50-30. They seem to just continue to have things rolling. Bo, we were looking forward to this matchup. Thompson, Vestavia. And look, it lived up to the hype. I was watching it on NFHS Network. It was 7-3 in the fourth quarter, but just not enough offense for Vestavia against Thompson. And it's a weird Thompson defense this year because they're not very big on that side. They're not what they've been in the past. There's no Jeremiah Alexander. There's no Peter Woods. There's no Tony Mitchell back there. I mean, it's not the same looking defense. They got Fagans, who is obviously a D1 talent, but they don't have the multitude of guys. But yet they just continue to play great defense. They held Opelika to a low score there in week 1, and then holding Vestavia. This is a Vestavia offense that scored a lot of points first 2 weeks of the year. 35 on Coach Chris Yeager in Mountain Brook, which you don't see happen very often. 21-3. Thompson, I think, kind of flexed their muscles and just showed everybody we're still the king of this region right here.
Well, Caleb, you and I was there. We watched some practice. We was with Coach Trey Clark, and we looked at their offensive line and was like, this don't look like a normal Thompson offensive line. They lost some guys on that side. I mean, they look like a good-looking group of guys, but they look like more of a 5A-ish, 4A-ish type size line. But he said they were very agile and they were coachable, and that was two huge things he looked for. But you're right. I thought where Vestavia was going to have an advantage in this game was going to be on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And that may have been the case. I didn't get to see the game. You did. Robert Evans has those guys believing, and he's took the fear. One thing he's done at Vestavia, he's took the fear out. They don't fear Hoover. They don't fear Thompson. That's why you're seeing these close scores, albeit losses right now. But, man, I mean, I'm with you. I thought this was going to be inside a 7-point game. I mean, I thought you'd give Thompson a slight edge, but just because there's still a mental hurdle when you go to face Mark Freeman. But yeah, I mean, like you said, they flexed their muscles, in my opinion.
Tuscaloosa Academy dominates Aliceville last night, 44-23. It's only their second year of AHSAA football, coming over from AHSAA, and they seem to have an impressive group at that 2A level. That'll be a team to watch out for. Tuscaloosa County, 42-21 over Chelsea. And, look, it feels like Coach Todd Cassidy's doing a good job at Chelsea, and it's really weird. It's hard to judge him because they move up from 6A to 7A into the hardest region in the whole entire state. But last year, these were games they were getting dominated in. They're at least in a lot of these ball games right now. So I think Coach Cassidy's doing a good job at Chelsea. And, I know that's a community that's starving to get back down to 6A when we do reclassification here soon. And if they do make that move, I think you'll see them benefit from these 2 years in 7A coming back down to 6A, and kind of similar to what we've seen with Gadsden City making that move back down to 6A as well. Corey, talk about this game. UMS Wright 13, LaFleur 6. Is LaFleur a lot better this year and it has a good group, or is UMS Wright not as good as we've seen in the past from some of those state championship teams?
Yeah, UMS Wright doesn't have a Cole Blaylock. They don't have those 2 or 3 dynamic players. And again, Cole Blaylock, the heart and soul of what Terry Curtis wanted to do at UMS. Always a great, fundamentally sound team. They're going to do their job. They're going to hit their assignments. LaFleur came into this trying to steal one in 5A Region 1. Weren't able to do so on the road. Renardo Jackson has done a phenomenal job in his second year of the head coach of the Rattlers, getting that program turned around and changing the mindset you mentioned. Good win for Terry Curtis, albeit ugly. It doesn't matter. It's still going to go as I've never seen an ugly looking W.
Valley over Beauregard last night, 21-14. That was a big game in that 5A region up there between those two teams. That one may end up. I think Central Clay is going to end up winning that region. That one right there, though, may have determined who's going to be that 2 seed and who's going to be that 3 seed, and having to travel in the first round, which is always really important. So that was a big game there between those two. Talk about this one, Corey. Viger 34, Citronelle 28 in overtime. Is the Citronelle Wildcats starting to make a little bit of comeback to being right there, being able to compete?
Competing, yes, but Viger showed what Viger's about, scoring 27 unanswered points. So anytime you can score 27 unanswered, Citronelle popped them in the mouth, hit them upside the head, and showed them, look, you can overlook us if you want to. That would have been the state shocker for everyone this morning, waking up, looking at their Saturday morning scores, watching us this morning on Average Joe's, but wasn't meant to be. Viger found a way to win it in overtime, scoring 27 unanswered points.
Wow. Seems like that was a fun game there. And then Bo ending this one off, Wadley 41, Spring Garden 7 last night. Wadley played for a state championship 2 years ago. They seem to have a group that's going to be right back with an opportunity to compete again here in 1A this year, but not. Yeah, I'm shocked to see Spring Garden get beat by 34 points last night.
Caleb, I'm going to be honest with you about a couple of things in this one. Believe it or not, the Wadley was 6-5 last year. They were down, but they actually beat Spring Garden.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental hurdle, even though they were having a downhill, they didn't fear Spring Garden. And kudos to Wadley, because I think they are a much improved football team. But I honestly think that loss to Coosa Christian at home shocked Spring Garden last week. And I think this was a hangover game. They took that loss. You know, you guys both know sometimes a loss can turn into 2 losses. A bad play can turn into 2 bad plays. And I think they kind of went in with their head down because they had such high expectations with the new coach, Garrett Ragsdale over there at Spring Garden. And I think this is a hangover. You know, you're on the road. Wadley's a long travel for them at Spring Garden. You're on the road. You just had a loss at home in a game that you wanted to win, a revenge game versus who knocked you out of the playoffs the year before. And you get out there, and the next thing you know, you wake up and you're down 20 points. And then it just spirals out of control. And I think that's what happened in this game. Very, very tough loss for Spring Garden right there.
And then just want to talk about this one because of the score I'm seeing right here. West Morgan 83, Brooks 53 last night. That's a basketball game.
That's the Corey LaBounty on Madden when he plays online. Top score.
Yeah, that's the cheat code type of stuff. And anytime you're able to score 83, yeah, you said it earlier, Bo. I think coaches don't run up the score intentionally, but I am going to put my players in the best position. I can't ask them not to score. I can't ask them not to do their job. And it's one thing when it's a rivalry, but it's another thing. 83 points, pretty impressive.
Hey,
how long do y'all think that game took last night? 136 total points.
I'd say it probably went over to 11:30. Hey, I will tell you a funny story. Coach O'Brien told the referees the other night, I'm not going to tell you which game, they were up big. He just said, if my guys was to go score, throw a flag on us. And the referee was like, what? He said, yeah, I'm not joking. If one of my guys breaks it, call a hold, whatever you got to call. He said, we don't want no more. He said, we don't want no more points. Just throw the flag.
That's funny.
Well, it's hilarious.
Well, we got region play started now. Starting to see kind of which teams are going to rise to the top. And we'll have a couple more weeks here before we get into some more non-region matchups and then get back into this second half of region play. But fun to get it started. Crazy that we're already 3 weeks into the season. Both of you guys know as well as I do. You get the season started, we snap our fingers, and we're at the Super 7. So it goes by fast. Trying to enjoy it week after week, and enjoy getting to do this show on Saturday mornings, talking about all these games with both of you guys as well. So that'll wrap things up for us here on the Average Joe Sports Talk Saturday morning recap show. We will meet myself, Bo Starkey, and Reggie Davis will be back on Tuesday with Road to the Blue Map, and we'll be up in Guntersville. So look, if you're wanting to come hang out, if you're around the Guntersville area, come hang out with us. You can come over to Wenzel's. You can sit out in the crowd, listen to it live. We've got a speaker out there where you can hear everything that's going on while you're there. Enjoy some great food and come and hang out with us. So we'll be live at 7 o'clock with Road to the Blue Map on Tuesday up there in Guntersville, starting getting everything set up for next week, week 3, 4th week of the year, but week 3 on the AHSAA schedule. And then we'll have this show again next Saturday and be back to recap all the action. And it just goes by fast. I mean, it just, next thing you know, it'll be Tuesday, then it'll be Thursday with games, Friday, and then we'll be right back here Saturday. So it's a lot of fun. I want to thank the Henry House in Guntersville for their sponsorship of this show. Make sure to go check out the Henry House. If you're looking to vacation, go up to Guntersville. Great area up there. They got the lake and just so much stuff to do. And the Henry House is the place to go and stay at for all your vacation needs. But for Corey LaBounty and Bo Starkey, I'm Caleb.